Donald Trump's various fundraising projects, including his PAC, Trump's Save America, has been, quote, targeting desperate and loyal middle and lower income Trump supporters, while very little of that donated money actually goes where donors believe it to.
Joining us now to discuss, assistant editor at American Great News, Pedro Gonzalez. Pedro, you've done some great reporting here about what exactly the Trump dollars are being used for as opposed to what they're being advertised for. Just go into what you found when you're looking at this.
So the bottom line is that the fine print on some of the solicitations that were sent out after the November election showed that in order to contribute to a so-called election defense fund, $5,000 would actually first go to Trump's Save America PAC, $3,300 would go to the RNC, while donations to the actual election defense fund, to which most people thought they were giving, were legally limited to $2,800. And according to Campaign Legal Center expert Brendan Fisher, Trump's leadership PAC, where a bulk of those funds went, was legally prohibited from actually spending any money on election litigation. So in other words, Trump raised tens of millions of dollars, much of which then went to his Save America PAC, on the claim that his PAC would do something that it was not actually allowed to do.
So you have this stat in here. Between November 3rd and January 31st, Trump raised more than $255 million. That's after the election from voters on the claim that the money would fuel the legal warfare needed to contest the election results. According to Bloomberg, however, by December 4th, the total spent on trying to overturn the election, which is what these people thought they were giving money towards, was just $8.8 million. Where is the rest of the money going, and what is he doing with it?
So much of that money is actually held in various political committees, whether they are his own or the RNC's. There's a lot of joint fundraising going on, or was going on. He emerged in 2021 with about 31 million cash on hand for his Save America PAC. Much of that 30 million was transferred from his Trump Make America Great Again committee. And like that quote states, basically a whole lot of money was raised, and only a fraction of it seems to actually have gone toward what it was raised for. And the same thing happened with the Georgia Senate runoff races, where a ton of money was raised on the claim of helping Perdue and Loeffler win. Obviously, that didn't work out. And it's not clear if any money went, for, at least from Trump's side, because the RNC was pouring money into those races. But from Trump's side of things, it's not clear that any money, or very little anyways, went actually towards helping the Georgia Senate runoff races, for which Trump was fundraising and campaigning. So the question here is, where is the money going? And again, I think we're talking about all the money involved, and these figures are huge, and I think it's easy to miss the human element of this story. And that is that the people that were most likely to give to these solicitations were middle and lower income supporters, the people that were the most vulnerable and desperate because of course, for them, I think the November election was jarring. The lead up to the Georgia Senate runoff races, that was, I think for them, it was really high intensity. And Trump raked in a huge amount of small dollar donors. These are people that gave $200 or less. And so I think that part really can't be overstated, is that these misleading solicitations affected more than anyone else his most loyal and vulnerable supporters.
I think this is, you're one of the very few people who's even willing to call some of this out, Pedro. And why do you feel that it is so important in order to highlight this, essentially taking $250 million in order to do whatever they want? And then you see this in the context of Trump also basically saying, don't donate to the NRCC or the RNC, or only donate to me. And you're highlighting here that he doesn't exactly do a lot of what he says he's going to do while raking in quite a bit of money from his supporters.
Right. Well, one response that I'm hearing is, well, this is what all politicians do. Well, I think that seems to be a contradiction, right? Because Trump is supposed to be the anti-politician, and he's doing what everyone else seems to be doing. So I think that excuse doesn't really work here, because again, this is supposed to be the guy that was going to drain the swamp, not fundraise on his behalf. And I think that this story matters because for the American right, there are a variety of challenges ahead. And this seems to me to be a distraction, if not an obstacle, when you're just giving money to someone who's using it on things that either are, not what he says he's going to do, or things that are against your interest, which I think if you look at his endorsements, those endorsements have not been great, or at least out of line with what he claims that he's going to be doing. And there is just a whole lot of impropriety involved in this. Because again, we expect this from the RNC establishment, right? This is what we expect from guys like Mitch McConnell. But if you're a Trump supporter, he's supposed to be different. He's supposed to be better. And I think that maybe an analog for this on the left is Bernie Sanders, who a lot of people argue kind of sold out in the last few years. And so if there are people on the left that kind of, laugh at Trump supporters because they got conned, I think that's also missing the story.
Yeah.
This is a story about the power of the establishment to convert people into basically just cash cows.
That's really well said. And also, by the way, look, if you've delighted in exposing the grift of the Lincoln Project, which we have certainly covered and done here, you can't, turn a blind eye just because it's somebody who's, on your team, so to speak. Is there evidence, Pedro, of Trump personally or his family or his inner circle benefiting directly financially from these funds?
For this story, I'm not sure. But according to the Washington Post's Philip Bump, the Save America PAC, the money that's in that political action committee, can be used on everything from golf memberships to travel to rallies. According to Bump, Trump can actually write it off as income if he payments directly to himself if he writes it off as income. Whether his family is benefiting from the PAC, again, I'm not sure. I haven't seen any evidence of that. But if you look at this story that the Business Insider broke a few months ago about $617 million in campaign cash, this was money that was supposed to go towards getting Trump reelected. Nearly $1 billion of that just kind of evaporated. And it looks like in that case, a lot of that money did actually go as payments to friends and family through various vendors and fronts. And this kind of nebulous labyrinth of payment systems, it makes it really hard to follow the money.
Great reporting on this,
really
Pedro.
great.
Thank you for the breakdown.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll have more Rising for you after this.